Like we're just a couple minutes past the hour, so let's go ahead and start the presentation. Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us for today's event. We're very happy to have you all here to go over the topic for the day, which is jumpstarting your 2018 job search. So essentially, no matter where you are in your search, whether it is you've been searching for months already, or you are just kind of thinking about it now and getting started, or you're maybe planning a little bit ahead and don't plan to start until 2018, but you wanted to kind of get some information and ideas under your belt. Hopefully this webinar will provide something for everybody. My name is Bree Reynolds, and I'm the Senior Career Specialist at FlexJobs, and FlexJobs is the company hosting today's event. I'll be leading the event, and our goal is to equip you, as I said, wherever you are in the job search process with just a lot of useful information so that as 2017 comes to a close and 2018 starts up, you can really jumpstart your search for a flexible and remote job. I'm assuming for a lot of you that is on your New Year's resolution list for the coming year is to get a more flexible or remote job, and that's probably why you're here. So welcome again, and thanks for being here. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. First, a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is going to last 1 hour, and the last 15 or 20 minutes or so will be for audience question and answers. So it's being recorded. The whole event will be recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent to you about 24 hours from now. Let's look at some of the information we'll be covering during the next 30 to 40 minutes or so. First, I'll go over a bit about FlexJobs for anybody who's unfamiliar. I know we have a mix of current FlexJobs members on the call as well as folks who are not FlexJobs members, so give you a little bit of overview. And then a deep dive into the flexible job market, fast-growing careers and jobs, common flexible jobs, companies hiring, and also scams, which are an unfortunate part of the remote job market. We'll touch a bit on those as well. And then we'll go over how to put together a job search roadmap for yourself, including in-demand skills for flexible jobs and resume and application tips. So essentially, we're going to give you the steps and some of the information that you need to get started on these things. So you have kind of a game plan in place for getting your job search started, or kind of jump starting or restarting your job search if it's already in progress. I'm going to try to leave the last 15 or 20 minutes for questions from you all, as I said. So as you do have questions, feel free to put them into the questions area on your GoToWebinar control panel. If you don't see your control panel, look around the screen for a little orange arrow. And if you click that orange arrow, the control panel should magically appear. And there'll be a question section where you can enter your questions as you have them throughout the presentation. And then at the end, I'll try to answer as many of those as I can. Okay, so a little bit about FlexJobs. First of all, FlexJobs is run by real human beings. I am one of them, but you can see our team there on the screen. We are celebrating our 10th anniversary this year, and I've been with FlexJobs for the last 7 years, 7.5 now, I think. I like to count all the time. We're a membership site, which is the opposite of most job boards. We list pre-screened, telecommuting, flexible schedule, full-time and part-time, and freelance jobs. We've helped over 2.7 million job seekers in their searches for these types of jobs in the past 10 years. And as I said, we're a membership site, which means that job seekers subscribe for a small fee, and that gives them access to pre-screened job listings, skills testing, discounts on resume reviews, other job search assistance. Essentially, it's just a really good package of information and tools to find flexible and remote jobs. And we don't take money from employers to post their jobs. But in order to do that, job seekers are our primary clients. You guys are our focus. You're who we are aiming to help every day. You're kind of our focus, our main clients. So not advertisers, not employers, which is a little bit different than other job search boards. We also hand screen every job and company on our site so that you don't have to go through that effort and spend many minutes and hours screening everything to make sure they're legitimate. What we do is look for professional level jobs with flexible work options, legitimate jobs and companies specifically, because there are, as I said, a lot of scams out there. And we weed out ads, scams, bogus business opportunities, commission-only jobs, and other jobs that we just don't feel are professional level and high quality flexible jobs. So what you find with FlexJobs is an easy to use database of flexible jobs, which we hope will make your job search easier, faster, and safer, of course. Lastly, the last thing I'll say about this before we get into the bulk of the presentation is we offer a satisfaction guarantee. So if any member isn't satisfied, they can do this really easily. They request a subscription cancellation and a full refund, and it's as easy as that. We just want people to walk away feeling that they've gotten some value from the services that we provide. As I said before, my name is Bree Reynolds, and I'm the Senior Career Specialist at FlexJobs. I've been at FlexJobs for 7 years, but I've been working with job seekers and employers for the last 13 years or so, and I was a college career advisor before coming to FlexJobs. So I love helping job seekers, especially find jobs that fit their lives and that bring them some sort of work-life balance, or whatever the things are that you're trying to balance in your life. Those are the types of jobs that I like to help people find. So that's what we're going to do today. So why don't we go ahead and get started? The first thing I wanted to touch on is some fast-growing, flexible, and remote careers, just so you kind of know what's out there. But before we get into those lists, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. And I know if you have been to a FlexJobs webinar before, you could probably tell everyone else on the call about this because you've seen it before. But I do want to make sure that we're all on the same page when I'm using that phrase flexible job, because it is a wide-ranging sort of phrase. So a flexible job, we think, is a job that offers flexibility in one of these 4 ways. So scheduling, location, status, and hours. So in terms of scheduling, it could have a flexible or an alternative schedule. For the location, it could be a telecommuting or remote position. Those mean essentially the exact same thing. And for status, it could be a freelance or an employee job. The only catch is that if it's an employee job, we do look for some other type of flexibility to call it a flexible job. So it would have to have a flexible schedule or allow you to telecommute or to work part-time. And that brings me to hours. So a part-time or a full-time job could be flexible. Again, the only difference is with a full-time job, we would look for some other kind of flexibility to make it more flexible. So being able to work from home or have a flexible schedule, something like that, or if you're a freelancer. But the bottom line is anything outside of that traditional 9-to-5 in-office job is something that we would consider flexible. In the next few slides, I'm going to throw a lot of lists at you, so get ready for the lists. They're hopefully just really helpful information, and the goal of giving you all these different lists is to get you thinking about your possibilities. So really, in any job search process, the first step is to start thinking about what are your options, what is possible for you. And you can always narrow your focus as you go, but right now we do want to just kind of keep it open and show you what the options are. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing I wanted to go over is fast-growing, flexible jobs and careers, because there's some interesting stuff going on out there. So if you're wondering where the bulk of flexible jobs will be in the coming years, these career fields and jobs are growing a lot. The career fields here, the 10 that you see, have seen the most growth over the last year in terms of the number of job openings posted on FlexJobs. So we, of course, are always counting job listings on FlexJobs. We're looking at what career fields they fall into, and these 10 have had the most growth over the last year. So at least 20% increase in the number of job postings since January of 2017. And so because of that, we do expect to see them offering a lot of jobs in 2018 as well. And then the next list that we have here is for a bit of a longer view. So these jobs, these 11 jobs, are expected to grow quite fast over the next decade. So this isn't just looking at the next year, but the next 10 years. And that's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They always publish lists of the fastest growing jobs in the US. This is all US data, I should say. Although actually that's not true. The career fields are US and abroad. We publish jobs from both United States location-based jobs and international jobs in other countries as well. The jobs on the right side are US-based jobs data. And so we compared this list from the Bureau of Labor Statistics of the fastest growing jobs to the flexible jobs that we see on a regular basis to find the fastest growing flexible jobs to consider. And so that's what you see here, these 11 jobs. We see flexibility with those on a regular basis, and they're also very fast growing and expected to rise at least 25% over the next 10 years. And this next list is going to show the most common or top career fields for flexible jobs. The information on this slide is based on the FlexJobs job posting data, similar to the last slide. So we're looking at the jobs that are posted to our site and which fields they are in. So right now, at the present moment, these fields have the most open flexible jobs posted. So we also look at this list regularly throughout the year, and these fields also tend to hold the top spots over time as well. So on the last slide, we showed you the fastest growing fields, but these ones are typically the top fields for flexible jobs because they have the most job listings over a long period of time. And so, as I said, I know this is a lot of random lists, and as you'll get the recording tomorrow, so you can review these as well. But looking at these lists, our goal is really to get you thinking about your possibilities. So whether you already have career ideas and job ideas in mind, or you're maybe looking for a career change or to re-enter the workforce and you're not quite sure where you want to go, hopefully as you're looking at these lists, you are starting to see some light bulbs going off in your brain, or I should say turning on, maybe not going off. And you're realizing the possibilities for your flexible job search in the coming year. Okay, so this slide is maybe 90% informational and 10% because I just really wanted to use this picture of an adorable dog dressed up like he's going to the office. A little levity for today. But this is just a list of surprising flexible jobs because I really want to drive home the point that exploring your options is the key first step to starting your successful job search. And this is even if you are already into your job search. It never hurts to stop and look at your options and see what's out there. Because a lot of times people limit themselves because they think they know what their options are, but it's actually a very small number of the total options that they have available to them. So here are some of the more surprising flexible jobs that we've seen listed recently on FlexJobs. So these were all available at the time that I put them in this PowerPoint, which was, I think, at the end of last week. But too often people rule out their options just because you don't know what exists out there for you. And as you can see, there are flexible jobs for almost any career field or profession, lots of surprising ones. And I'm not saying they're all this surprising, but just it helps to kind of keep your mind open and keep thinking of the possibilities. Just some interesting ones listed here. So enjoy the dog, enjoy the surprising flexible jobs list, and then we will continue to what I think is our last list here, and then we'll get into some really good tips and advice. Okay, so in addition to the wide variety of jobs and career fields that are associated with flexible jobs, which, telecommuting, remote, freelance, all of those types, there are many different companies, large and small, that offer flexible work options, of course, because we see all these flexible jobs and they have to be coming from somewhere. So these are the top 20 companies, their logos are going to start appearing here, offering flexible jobs. And as you can see, they come from a variety of industries. So just to kind of give you some ideas, there's communications, travel, healthcare, technology, and education represented here, and there's lots of other ones, of course. This is only 20 companies that have posted the most flexible jobs over the last year, but this is out of many thousands of companies that we see at FlexJobs, over 47,000 companies that we have on our site. So you may find that other companies support flexible work options. You can find those companies by going to the jobs and companies section of the FlexJobs blog. So you can see the web address down there on the bottom of the screen, flexjobs.com/blog. And if you go to the jobs and companies section, we are always posting lists of companies and lists of jobs currently hiring. And then you can also go to the guide to the best companies for flexible jobs on FlexJobs, another free resource for anybody. You don't have to be a FlexJobs member, but this will give you access to those 47,000 companies that have offered flexible work. And thank you, Jen. My coworker, Jen, who's working behind the scenes, is putting those links in the chat area of your GoToWebinar control panel, so you'll be able to see those links and click straight to the site. But yeah, anyway, these companies are really at the forefront of offering flexible work options. They offer many of them through thousands of them throughout the course of the year, and they're a good place to start, just to give you some ideas of what's out there. Okay, so now that we've hopefully got some ideas churning, some light bulbs turning on as to what you might be able to find for a flexible job, we do want to talk about one of the less fun parts of the flexible and remote job search that you're going to be going on, job scams. They are an unfortunate part of the remote job industry specifically, but once you have this information, hopefully you will be able to avoid them and find the legitimate jobs that are listed out there. Okay, so quite a lot of scams exist in the work from home job market in particular. So there are job scams out there for all different types of flexible jobs, but a lot of scammers are preying on people who want to work remotely in particular. And if I asked for a show of hands for this audience, I know the vast majority of you would probably raise your hands to say, yes, I would like to work from home in some way or other. So scammers know that, and they put these jobs out there to try to lure people in. So it's estimated that there are about 60 to 70 remote jobs for every one legitimate job. So that is a lot of jobs to sift through. Some of them are obvious. They're already showing up in your spam email box. They're proclaiming you can make thousands of dollars working from home in your pajamas, but others are more sophisticated, and that's typically where we see people getting caught, is those more sophisticated ones. So it's really important to know how to spot scams and to keep yourself safe, and that's what we're going to talk about. So this list of common remote job scams, you can see there's things like pyramid sales schemes, envelope stuffing, anything having to do with money wire transfers. If you're being asked to transfer money either through your own bank account or to cash checks or use Western Union to transfer money, rebate and forms processing, package processing, craft and product assembly, and copycat companies. And I have a feeling most of you could probably spot some of those, craft assembly, product assembly, pyramid sales schemes, that sort of thing. But the copycat companies is one of those more sophisticated ones that we've seen over the last couple of years. And that's one that I definitely wanted to kind of talk about just a little bit, which we will do on the next slide. Excuse me. So these are some of the warning signs that you might be dealing with a scam. And a lot of these have to do with that copycat company, where essentially a scammer has stolen the likeness of a real company. They've taken their logo, they've taken some of their web design, they've taken job titles and recruiters' names, and they've created these fake websites that are made to look like a real company that's hiring. So some warning signs of those types of scams are, if you can't quite find the company's name, or if they're using a generic email address, but they're saying they're from some sort of company that you would know, a well-recognized name of a company, that's one red flag there. If they have a vague job description or no job description, if they're talking mostly about how much money that you could make or how easy the job is or how little experience or skills you need, if they're going to interview you over instant messenger or IM, if they're doing their job interviews that way, that's another warning sign. If they offer you a job immediately, that's another warning sign. And if they really urge you to accept that job offer without having time to think about it or to talk to your family, or to even give your current employer, if you have one, the typical 2 weeks notice, those are all warning signs that you're dealing with somebody who's trying to get you to act before you think. That's the big thing. And then copycat companies in particular, you'll notice that their web address, if you're on a scam copycat company site, the web address doesn't match the real company's careers page. And so I'll talk to you in the next slide. I'll give you a couple tips on how you can actually figure that out as you're searching, just to kind of keep yourself safe. So the biggest thing I will say is to trust your instincts. When I talk to people who have been scammed, almost all of them will say that at some point in the process, when they were talking to this supposed company that turned out later to be a scam, there was something that happened that made them kind of think twice or pause or think, gee, that's really not right, something's off. But because they wanted the job so badly, they wanted to stop having to job search, they wanted to be employed and just be done with it, they kept going. They didn't listen to that instinct and they kept going. And that's what scammers are hoping, is that they can just kind of push you into this without really giving you a chance to think about it, and that you'll just keep going. So the biggest thing you can do is trust your instincts. It does not hurt to pause, to do some more research, or even to walk away if you think that you're dealing with something that is not above board. Okay, so a couple simple methods for identifying scams. The first one is, these are two kind of different ways to search the internet. to find these, if something is a scam that you're dealing with. The first, always you could open a private or an incognito browser. That's the best way to do it, just because it gives you a completely, fresh search history, fresh results. Search for the company's name or the job title that you're dealing with that's kind of giving you pause, and the keyword scam, and see what comes back. Because oftentimes when people have been scammed, they try to warn other people about it by posting on the internet about it. So you might find something on the Better Business Bureau, or the FBI sometimes reports about scams that are going on, work from home job scams in particular. Or you might find something on a site like Reddit or another kind of chat board or message board that's kind of open to the public. But it's good to see what's out there, see what other people are saying about that company or that job title, and if anybody else reports having been scammed. And then for well-known companies that you think might be a copycat company, you'll want to do the same thing first. Open a private or an incognito browser, and then search for the company's name and the word careers to find the real careers page. And then you can compare those two web addresses. If they're not the same, then whatever web address you were on is probably a scam site. So that's a really easy way to just make sure you are in the right place, and to stay away from scams. Okay, so with that being said, I wanted to jump to the next big topic, build your job search roadmap for 2018. So there are some key stops in your roadmap. Between now and January, these are kind of the main things you're going to do, or that I would recommend that you do. Hopefully you'll do them. And then we're going to dive into a couple of these in particular pretty deeply, just to make sure that you've got the tools that you need to do these things. So the first thing that I recommend you do is to inventory your skills and start building new ones, because you want to make sure that your resume is up to date, that you have the skills that people are looking for, and that you can really put yourself out there as one of the best applicants, the most prepared applicants, and one of the people who has the most current up-to-date skills for whatever types of jobs you're going for. And we'll talk about how to kind of figure that out in the next couple of slides. And then updating your application materials, your resumes, cover letters, your online portfolios, online profiles is the second step. You want to make sure everything's kind of up to date, ready to go. And then researching companies and jobs that are available, seeing what's out there. Now we talked a lot about possibilities at the beginning of the webinar. This is where you actually start to focus yourself instead of, widening the view and looking at all the possibilities. You start to go, okay, out of those possibilities, which ones do I really want to focus on? Which do I think will be either the most in line with my career goals, in line with my interests, my skills, all that sort of stuff, and really focusing your attention on a few key types of jobs. And then, of course, I like to always say that one of the big things you have to do is actually start applying to jobs. I feel like a lot of us will get stuck in this preparation process where we are, updating our online portfolios and our resumes, and we're getting ready and we're almost ready. We just have to do this one last thing. And you can put off applying to jobs forever if you have that one last thing that you need to do. So, one of the things you really do have to do is start applying. But the next few slides are going to deal with two of these roadmap stops in particular, your skills and your resumes. So you're going to walk away with some pretty specific tips and homework assignments for what to do in relation to your skills and your resumes. Excuse me there, just wanted to take a brief moment to get a sip of water. Okay, so let's talk about some in-demand skills and how to actually build them. I thought it might be helpful to break down the potential skills you'll need to land a flexible or a remote job into 3 buckets, which you can see here. The skills that you already have, the skills you can build easily, and the skills that will take more effort to build. So hopefully, between these 3 areas, you will have a good idea at where to go next. And hopefully it makes it a bit less overwhelming to inventory and build your skills over the next month or so before you jump full swing into your job search in January. Because sometimes you don't even know where to start. There's so many different skills being asked for. There's so many different skills you have, but are they, in line with what the employer is looking for? Are they up to date? So hopefully this, takes the guesswork out of that a little bit. Okay, so some skills you may already have. These listed here are the top skills for remote and flexible jobs. The good news is that you may already have some or even most of these in-demand skills. So these are what employers that hire for remote and flexible jobs have told us they're looking for. Outside of the actual skills to do the job, whether it's marketing manager or clinical psychologist or whatever it might be, that these types of skills, so what they're sometimes called soft skills, are really what they're looking for to make sure somebody can handle a remote or a flexible job. So I want to make sure that you know what those skills are and that you're really calling attention to the ones that you already have on your resume and your online profiles. So hopefully you're looking at this slide and you're going, yeah, I have that, or oh, totally, I've got that one covered. Make sure those are highlighted on your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and even, talking about them in your cover letter too. So we have things like digital communication skills, both written and verbal, being able to communicate over digital mediums, whether it's instant messenger or email or web conferencing, like this sort of thing, webinars and that kind of stuff. All of those different digital communication skills. And then time management, task management, the ability to focus. When you are working flexibly, you're your first line manager. You're the person keeping you on task and moving forward. Proactive questions, not being afraid to speak up for yourself. If you're not able to speak up with yourself, that is very much the opposite, and you need to work on that for these flexible and remote jobs. So being comfortable asking questions when you're stuck, when you don't know where to go, when you need information, and also being proactive in asking questions about your career track and things like raises and promotions and stuff like that. Basically, being able to speak up for yourself when you have questions. Also, comfort with technology and troubleshooting, just basic troubleshooting skills. In flexible and remote job environments, you're also your first line help desk. You are the person who's kind of responsible for keeping you going in terms of technology, your computers, your tablets, your cell phones, all that sort of stuff. Having a growth mindset, which means embracing change and learning, which we're talking about skills, and we're going to be talking about skills you need to be learning. That's a really big deal, and not just for flexible and remote companies, but for traditional companies as well. A lot of employers now are talking about hiring people with a growth mindset, because skills that used to get you by for 10 or 15 or 20 years in a career are no longer that way. The skills that are specific to a job, you need to be retraining on those every few years, even smaller than that for some industries, depending on what you do. So that growth mindset, that being open to learning and embracing change, is really critical for anybody who's going to plan on having a career over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Strategic thinking, along the same lines, even traditional companies are looking for strategic thinkers, people who can see the forest and the trees and kind of look long term and plan for goals and things like that. And then having familiarity with remote communication tools, that's another key one. And I'm going to talk specifically about which tools those are on the next slide. But remember, these are skills you might already have, and it's really important to start highlighting them on your resumes and on your online profiles. Okay, so the second bucket, skills you can easily build. A little bit more of good news here. Some of the most in-demand skills are fairly easy and free to build if you don't have them already. And so I'm talking specifically about digital communication skills, which was that last slide. But these are the tools that you use to actually communicate digitally these days. So they're increasingly necessary, especially for flexible remote jobs, but even in traditional office environments, you will be asked to use tools like this. So it's important either way. And so you have things like instant messenger, video conferencing, file sharing, and virtual office environments. And I've got listed the top tools that remote companies specifically tell us they use most often for each of these things. So these are remote companies that have mostly or completely remote workforces, say these are their go-to tools for these different types of communication. The good news is that to gain these skills, if you're not familiar with these tools yet, it's free because a lot of them have either free versions or free trials. So I would definitely recommend jotting down some of these names. You don't have to know every single one, but I would say getting familiar with one or two from each category is probably a good idea. And then go and get their free versions or their free trials and test them out. Get to know them, take them for a spin, click around, see how they work. Maybe enlist some family or friends or coworkers and kind of testing them out so you can really get to know how they help you communicate with another person. And then you can start adding that very quickly to your resumes, to your online profiles, and just bumping yourself up as somebody who understands these communication tools and who is ready to go forward in a remote or a flexible office environment and not need much training when you first get there. You can jump right on Slack, or you've used GoToWebinar before, or whatever it might be. Okay, so the last slide about skills, let me just take one more sip of water. This slide has to do with skills that take more effort to build. So these are skills that the LinkedIn Future Skills list has listed as the high-level skills that employers need. So these are skills that employers have said we are looking for. They're higher level, they're more in-depth, and sometimes they're a bit specific as to the type of job or career field that you're going into. But I wanted to let you all know, because I think some of these things are going to be important no matter which type of career you're in. And there are other skills like this as well. You might be thinking about your own career right now, or the jobs that you're interested in, and going, yeah, you know what? I have heard that X skill, whether it's listed on this list or not, is going to be really important in the next 5 years. I should probably get on that. And this is your call to get on that. If you know of any skills in your career field that are in really high demand, or that are said to be growing, those are things you're going to want to start getting into now. So how to actually build those skills. So there's two different ways that you could do it online. Of course, there are lots of offline courses as well. I like to take offline courses every now and then. Get in front of people. You have that kind of one-on-one instructor and experience. But if you're looking to do something online, there's lots of options. So some free online learning sites are edX, Coursera, and Open Culture. And they have courses that might range from 1 video to 10 videos in a row about these different types of skills. And there's also online learning that you can pay for. These types of courses go a lot more in depth. They're a lot more specific. Sometimes they end with a certification depending on how the courses are set up. But those can be done through General Assembly, lynda.com, and Skillshare, just to name a few. And if you're a FlexJobs member, so if you're on the call and you're already a FlexJobs member, you can actually save on those 3. So we have partnerships with General Assembly, lynda.com, and Skillshare. If you go to flexjobs.com/members/savings, you can figure out what the deal is for each of those, and also take a look and just see which of those might be more up your alley in terms of the skills that you need to learn. But I would say, maybe put one on your list. If you're still looking for Christmas gifts from people, that might be a good Christmas gift to ask for, is that one course that you want to take. But maybe between now and January, put one on your list. Maybe go to one of the free ones and watch those, and then decide that, as of January 1st, you're going to sign up for one that's a pay for one, or whatever works for you, essentially. So knowing what careers and job titles you're going for, figure out which way it might be best to, build these skills that take a little bit more effort. But the good news is, I think with each of these slides, I've had a little bit of good news. You don't have to commit to a lengthy degree program or head back into a classroom if you don't want to. These are sort of learning at your own pace and at your level too, where you really need to be to build these skills. So hopefully that's helpful. Oh, and actually, let's see. Nope, I think that was it. Okay, moving on to the last section that we're going to talk about here, resumes for flexible jobs. And it looks like we are right on time. So there's a couple different things to look at for resumes once you've inventoried your skills. And then it's time to add those skills to your resumes, your online profiles, and other application materials. So I'm talking specifically about resumes on the next couple slides, but this is also stuff that you should add to your LinkedIn profile and that you should talk about in your cover letters. And when you're networking with people, it's not just something to put on your resume and then that's it. So here are just a few key tips for adding information to your resumes. So if you have previous flexible work experience, so you've worked remotely before, you've had a flexible schedule, whatever it might be, and it doesn't have to be formal. If you've done it in an informal capacity where you've been effective and you've been productive, either working from home or controlling your schedule, you can put that information on your resume and in your application materials. You can add those keywords to the position on your resume. So you could do that in the job title, you could do that in the location. I actually have some examples on the next slide, and they are fresh examples for anybody who has been on one of these webinars before. We've got some fresh examples this time. And then if you don't have any previous flexible work experience, you want to go back to those skills that we talked about on that first slide, skills you may already have, and then skills that are easy to build. So those digital communication skills. Put your best flexible skills on your resume, tout your technology know-how, your comfort with technology, and put that information out there just to show the employer that maybe you haven't worked flexibly before, but you have the skills, you have what it takes to be successful working that way. So here are a couple different examples. The first person has put that they worked in a remote position right in that line where you put the company's name, your job title, and the dates that you've worked there. So it's a really easy way, you can say this is where my headquarters was, or this is where the office is based, and then it was a remote position. Easy peasy, very simple. The next person in their technology skills section, they've got a nice little graphic there. They've got, your typical Microsoft Office suite information, and then tools used for effective remote work, video conferencing, and then they've listed the ones that they're familiar with. Instant Messenger, again, listing the ones that they're familiar with, and new tools adopted on a regular basis. Excuse me. And I think that's a good thing to put because it shows employers that you're regularly updating your skills and you're used to change. You're used to having to learn new tools, and you're okay with that. Maybe not even just okay, you are very comfortable with that. The last person here, this appeared at the top of their resume. So this is kind of that summary of qualifications section that you might have on your resume, which I always recommend. And in one of the bullets here, they have 6 years experience working remotely and in flexible office environments. And I always like to point out, I love that phrase, flexible office environments, because it kind of covers everything. So whether you worked from home just a little bit, and sometimes you had a flexible schedule and that sort of thing, it kind of covers all those different things. But it just tells the employer, I've worked flexibly before, I understand what it takes, and I can be successful. This person also has the skills listed. So specifically, they have productivity and communication skills, process improvement, kind of that growth mindset that we were talking about when they're talking about process improvement, that continuous learning and changing and adapting to change. And so they've got that information there as well. Okay, so just a couple things on how FlexJobs can help you find flexible jobs. And this is for both members and people who aren't members. There's something for both of you here. So we'll go over this just a little bit. Excuse me, I wanted to touch on this because that last stop on your job search roadmap is to start applying for flexible and remote jobs. So if you're not kind of sure where to do that, FlexJobs is of course a good place to start. And as I said, there's some information here for members and people who aren't currently members. So on FlexJobs, whether you're a member of FlexJobs or not, you'll be able to search our full job listings. So even if you're not a member, you can see all of the jobs that we have posted and see results that match your search parameters. This advanced search page, which I've just got a screenshot of it here, is a really helpful tool because you can search by things like keyword and location, your career category, your telecommuting level, which I'll talk about on the next slide, your work schedule, pretty much all of those little things you can search by. Members will see the full detailed job descriptions and company contact information to apply in the results. And for those who aren't members, you'll see a shorter description. You won't see the company contact information, but it's a great first step in your research. The results will give you a really good sense as to whether FlexJobs has the sorts of jobs that you're looking for. And it'll also just give you a good sense of what types of flexible jobs are out there that fit what you're looking for. So you kind of can narrow down your job titles, things to look out for. How are employers describing these jobs? That sort of thing. It'll also just kind of help give you those insights for wherever you might wind up searching so that you can narrow your search and your focus to really get the best results for you. Okay, so when you're on that page, I just wanted to touch on this because I know so many people are interested in working remotely. Not all remote jobs are 100% from home, which I think is a bit of a shock for some people. It was for me, actually, when I started this job 7 years ago. I did not know that. Some employers hire people for remote or telecommuting levels that are less than 100%. So we've broken that down and made it easy for people to search for the level of telecommuting that they're after. If you want to work completely from home all the time, then 100% telecommuting is the level for you. The other ones kind of go down, more and more with each one. So there's mostly telecommuting, some telecommuting, and the option for telecommuting. But this will help you narrow it down and figure out which jobs are out there for your ideal situation. And if you're not finding a lot in your ideal situation, I would definitely try looking a little bit above and a little bit below to the different levels to see what else is out there. Okay, and some other free resources on FlexJobs. These are completely open for members and non-members alike. The FlexJobs blog is near and dear to my heart. I've spent a lot of time there over the last 7 years. We have over 5,000 articles on landing flexible and remote work, and really good tips on resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, interviewing, what questions to expect for remote and flexible jobs. So over the next month or so, you might do some browsing, maybe sign up for our newsletter so that you get that information right to your inbox. It's a really helpful resource for pushing along your job search and really making you the best job seeker that you can be. There's also the 100 top companies for remote jobs. That's a list that we put out every year. The next one is coming in January. And these are companies that have posted the most remote jobs over the last year. And so that's a really good indicator that they're going to continue to post a lot of remote jobs. The FlexJobs guide to the best companies for flexible jobs, I mentioned this before, but I wanted to reiterate it. It's over 40,000 companies. I think it's about 47,000 now. That have offered flexible and remote jobs in the past. And so what you'll see is the company information, some information on what they do, the products and services they offer, and then you'll see their job posting history. So you can actually see the job titles that they've listed in the past and the type of flexibility they've been offering, and a brief description for each of those, so you can know, like, oh yes, this company often hires for remote positions in my career field, or oh, this company only posts flexible schedule jobs for my career field, or whatever it might be. But it gives you some really good insights into what companies offer. Okay, so the last slide before questions, and we are right on time. Good. And I know I talked really fast during this presentation, so I hope you'll go review the recording for anything that wasn't clear. And I know there's some questions about things that people wanted to go back to, so we'll try to do that as well. So the first thing to do, as I said, is think about your possibilities. But then you do have to decide on a focus and research it. And for some of you, you might already be there. You might already have your focus and you're ready to go, and that's great. And then pinpoint your best skills and which skills you actually need to build, and start thinking about how to do that over the next month or maybe 2 months. Update your application materials with the skills you already have, the skills that are easy to build, and then those skills that you do have to spend some more time building. And then you actually have to start searching for jobs. I just want to say that again. On FlexJobs, I think I said this before, but just to remind you, FlexJobs members on the call today, you'll see the full descriptions, you'll see the company's names and the contact information for every single job. If you're not a member, you'll see every listing, but with just basic details. But it'll just give you a sense of what's out there. All right, so let's dive into questions. Just going to open up my questions roster here. Oh, okay, so someone's asking about the pig idea. The pig idea on the surprising job slide. That was a real job, pig idea and policy officer. I can't actually tell you what that job is about, but if you search on FlexJobs for pig idea, if it's still a live job, you might be able to find out what that is about. But yes, that was not a typo, that was real. Okay, so actually really good question here from Charlene. Do most flexible jobs come with medical benefits? This is a question that we get asked often because obviously people are wondering, are the benefits real or the same for flexible jobs versus traditional jobs? It really does line up in the same way as a traditional job. So if you are an employee and you work full-time, you're going to get the same benefits as an employee who works full-time in a traditional office would get. So whatever that company is offering for their traditional employees, if they have them, you're going to be offered those same benefits. For part-time employees, it depends, just like it does for regular part-time employees. If the company offers benefits to part-time employees, then you would also have access to those benefits in a remote or a flexible job. It just depends. Some companies offer benefits to part-time employees, some don't. For freelancers who are in a flexible job, you are completely responsible for your benefits. So that's really the dividing line, if you're a freelancer or you're an employee. So those are the two things to watch out for, really. And then also just to ask, what sort of benefits does your company offer? Because that largely has to do with the company's size, the number of employees they have, and that sort of thing as to whether they even have to offer benefits in the first place. Do you post work from home jobs in Ontario, Canada? Yes, we do. We post jobs throughout Canada, Mexico, Ireland, the UK, Australia, Germany, all over, the Middle East, Asia, kind of all over the world. I will say the majority of the jobs that we post are US based, but we do have jobs in other areas. And if you go to that advanced search page, you can search by international location, and you can actually choose your country to see what's listed in your country specifically. Okay, good question about what is the interview process for flexible jobs. So the interview process is very often similar to a traditional job. So you'll receive a screening phone call typically. Most employers do some sort of screening phone call with a recruiter or an HR person, just to kind of make sure that you are who you say you are, that your resume is something you can talk about, and that you would be worth bringing in for an interview. If it's a remote position, they will typically do the interview in a remote way. So it might be a video call. It might just be a regular phone call. That is definitely something to ask about, because I highly recommend for a video call especially, you really want to practice, because if you've never been on video, it's an experience. And so it's something that you'll want to get used to. So I would say definitely ask, what's the format of this interview? How can I best prepare? And then for other jobs that are in person but might have a flexible schedule or something like that, it depends. A lot of those are going to be in person, especially if they're location specific and they are in your area. They're probably going to want to bring you in and meet you. And even for some remote positions, especially for higher level ones or ones where you're going to be a front facing person in a customer service role or sales or something where you are dealing directly with customers and clients, they might want to bring you in and meet you and kind of see how you are face to face. So the short answer is it varies. It varies a lot between the different types of jobs. Okay, this is my first webinar. Welcome, Jean, to your first FlexJobs webinar. This just essentially means that you will get a video recording. So you'll get a link. We put the video up on YouTube and on our blog, and you'll be able to watch it anytime. So that's what that means. Okay, let's see, just scrolling through the list here. Oh, somebody's mentioning that they did see a scam job like the ones I was talking about. It seemed like it was a recruiter, but their company was not on LinkedIn, nor was the CEO or the recruiter. Those are all great red flags. Thank you, Andrea, for pointing those out. If you can't find anything about a company on LinkedIn, that's a pretty big red flag. You can't find anybody who works there. Sometimes the company just hasn't claimed their company page on LinkedIn. That's one thing. Small companies might not. But if you can't find anyone who works there, that's a big red flag. I might actually put that on a future webinar. Thank you, Andrea. That is really helpful. Another question from Tina. Are there scam jobs listed on flexjobs.com? No, one of the big things that we do is weed out the scams. So anything that you find posted on FlexJobs is a legitimate professional level job. It is not a scam. So we guarantee no scams, no ads, no commission only jobs, just kind of a very clean database of high quality jobs. Let's see. Good question so far. Shonda was wanting people to know that lynda.com is available for free through the public library if you have a library card. So that's very good to know. Thank you, Shonda. And apologies if I say anyone's name wrong while I'm doing this. I am notoriously terrible at pronouncing people's names in writing. So apologies for that if I have gotten anything wrong so far. Any specific advice for the older worker? I have decades of experience, but I'm not sure it's being viewed as a benefit or a liability. Thank you, Tamara, for bringing this up, or Tamara, because I think oftentimes we do have a lot of older workers on these calls. Flexibility is actually one of the biggest things that we see older workers interested in, because either you're continuing in your career, but you want to do it in a way where you have more control, or maybe you're at retirement or into retirement and you're looking to continue bringing in money, maybe supplement either just your retirement life, or find money for travel or whatever it might be. But you want to do it in a way that fits your lifestyle, that means that you actually get to take advantage of retirement and that sort of thing. One of the things I would recommend, we have this partner called Career Pivot. Mark Miller is the founder of Career Pivot, and that's a really helpful resource for older workers to really make sure that they are putting their best selves forward and, like you said, being viewed as a benefit versus a liability. There are definitely some things that you can do as an older worker to kind of showcase your best skills and your best experiences without being seen as a liability, which is an unfortunate way that some employers do view older workers if it's, if it's the way that they look at things. So there are also articles on the FlexJobs blog that can help with this as well. So I definitely recommend looking at that. If you actually just use the search phrase older worker, you will find a lot of resources on the blog. Okay, just looking through here. Can I search by salary? So this is a question from Maria. Searching by salary, unfortunately, most employers don't post what the salary is on the job description. And this isn't just a thing that's on FlexJobs. Any job search board, the vast majority of employers just don't advertise what the salary is in advance, which is so unfortunate. From the job seeker's perspective, it's incredibly frustrating to not have that information. What I will say is there's a couple different things you can do to research the salary information to just have an idea of what your range should be, what you should be expecting. So especially with remote jobs, there are a couple different ways that companies set their salaries. One is they look at where you're located. So as the remote worker, they take your location into consideration when they're setting a salary range for that position. So they might be hiring people who are in New York City, which has a very high cost of living, and so they would factor that into the range. The other way that they do it is to use their location. So if it's a company that has a headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky, for example, and I know for anybody who's heard this webinar before, I need to get a new city because I say Louisville a lot. I drove through there this summer and it just kind of stuck in my mind. So anyway, a much lower cost of living in Louisville, so they would set their range according to that. So you would want to look at both of those. You would want to take your location and find the salary range for that particular job with your level of skills and experience in your location, and then look at the company's location and get the same range for that location. And that's going to give you a wider range, but at least you'll kind of have an idea of how wide the spectrum might be and where that salary might fall for that particular position. There's a few good sites to do that on. Salary.com is one of them, easy to remember. Payscale.com is another one, and Glassdoor.com, Glassdoor. And so each of those will give you a decent salary range, and you can kind of see the wider scope of what you might expect for salary. I will say for flexible jobs, one of the questions we get asked is, are salaries different for flexible jobs than they are for in-office jobs? And the answer is no. Usually they're very in line, very similar to what you would find in a traditional position. The difference comes down to that location, especially for remote jobs. How is the employer setting salary based on location? And that's something that you could ask them too. In the interview process, you could ask, how do you set a salary range for a remote position? We asked that of employers at a webinar earlier this year, and they were all very open in telling us how they actually do that. And it was those two different ways, essentially. Okay, so let's just scroll through here a little bit. Excuse me. How do remote positions work with either international clients or US jobs, but you're living internationally? Okay, so I think what this is asking is kind of how do remote positions work when you are located in one country and either your clients or your company is located in a different country. It really depends on the company. So some companies restrict their remote jobs to hiring within one country. So they might be hiring only US residents or only German residents or something like that. And then other companies are open to hiring people from a variety of different locations, or they might be open to hiring someone who works from anywhere. We call those work from anywhere jobs. Those have zero location requirement. So those are the different things you're going to come across. The easiest way to pinpoint jobs that are available wherever you are based is to use that advanced job search page and put in your location. And then only jobs that actually fit your location or that are work from anywhere jobs will come up. And so you'll know you're able to apply for those. Tips for job searching during the end of the year. Do employers speed up their search? Yes, this is such a tricky time of year for job seekers. And so since all of you are thinking about this, you're probably also wondering, what is the deal with end of the year job searching? Some employers will speed up their search. Some employers slow down their search. But there is not this pause in hiring that sounds so common that people often think there is at the end of the year. It really sometimes just comes down to who's on vacation when. So some recruiters, take a week off at the end of the year, and that might slow things down, but that's not for everybody. So I would never assume that it's the time of year that you want to slow your job search down. Other people do assume that and they slow down, and that's okay. If your schedule means that you need to take a break this time of year and recoup, then that's what you need to do to be a better job seeker at the beginning of the year. But if you have the time and the energy and you want to put some work into your job search right now, it's actually a great time to job search because a lot of people are taking a break, job seekers that is, so you are putting yourself a little bit ahead of the pack if you're able to keep going. It's also a good time to just reach out to people in your network and say, hey, I just wanted to wish you, happy holidays, happy new year. How did your year go? Here are a couple of my accomplishments this year, or here's what I'm hoping to do next year. Just, looking to get back in touch with you. There's a lot of good built-in excuses for talking to people this time of year. So take advantage of that. Even if you're not actively applying to jobs right now, you could be reaching out to your network and talking to them and just getting back in touch with them so that when the new year rolls around and you're ready to apply, you've already got that relationship going again and you can reach out to them maybe with a request for a connection or something like that. All right, I have time for probably a couple more questions here. What are some good tips to apply for a job when you're a new graduate? So we're at the other end of the spectrum. We've talked about older workers and now a question from a new graduate. It seems to be hard to get a job with no experience. Yes, it can be. I worked with new graduates for about 5 years when I was a college career advisor, and it can be. It's also because a lot of times new graduates just lack confidence as well because it's your first major job search. You may have done part-time jobs, you may have done internships, but depending on how intensive those job search processes were, this might be your first kind of big job search process. And it's also the one with the most riding on it. You need a job once you're out of college, you have bills to pay. And so yeah, you're not wrong to feel that way for sure. I would say the biggest thing you can do is really play up your skills and not just talk about, especially if you have any part-time work or any internship experience or volunteer experience, put that on your resume. But instead of focusing on, and this is actually advice for anybody on the call, don't focus on the tasks that you did because oftentimes it's pretty obvious to people. If you were a part-time retail clerk or you worked at the school's library or whatever it might be, the tasks that you complete in those jobs can be pretty obvious to people. You don't have to explain what those jobs entailed. What you should be explaining is the skills that you gained in doing that job, the accomplishments that you had, and the skills that apply specifically to the jobs that you're looking at. So whether it's customer service skills or organizational skills, time management, all that sort of stuff, anything that you can do to really connect your skills that you built in those jobs to the skills that employers are looking for in the job descriptions you're reading, that's a good way to make yourself stand out. Okay, and it looks like we have come to the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So thank you all so much for coming today. I know I threw a ton of information out there at you, and hopefully you have been able to take in some of it, and you're walking away with a few homework assignments. And also be on the lookout tomorrow for a link to view this webinar again. So you can watch the whole thing. You can fast forward to the parts that you really wanted to look at again. And hopefully that's helpful as well. Just after this, we're going to have a quick survey pop up after the webinar. And then tomorrow you'll receive, as I said, an email with that survey if you don't have a time to take it right now, and a recording to view if you want to view the webinar again. We also post all of our upcoming webinars and past videos. If you want to go through the video library for learning some additional stuff, you can go to the blog, flexjobs.com/blog, and then go to FlexJobs resources and job search webinars and videos. And there's a huge library of information there that you can kind of pick over the next few weeks. Our next webinar will be at the end of January. We'll be talking about the top 100 companies for remote jobs in 2018. So be on the lookout for that. We will advertise it, of course, on the blog and in our newsletter, and you can sign up for that when the time comes. But thank you all so much for being here today. Actually, somebody was asking how many were on the webinar. I think we were up towards 500 at the highest point. So thanks for everybody who was there. And I wish you the very best for this holiday season and into the new year, and best of luck in your job search. Thanks, everyone.